Hello and welcome to episode number 351 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's show, Norwegian ends its long-haul operations, British Airways brings out some funky new luggage, and a light aircraft door is found on a UK motorway. In the military news this week, some KC46 tankers get delivered. Test pilots learn how flight testing of electric commuter aircraft is pushing the boundaries. And it's sad news when we hear about the Royal Air Force Spitfire woman Eleanor Wadsworth, who has died at the age of 103. But joining me this week, as always, in the PTUK studios, it's the man, the master himself. It's Matt Smith.
What did I do wrong there? Hey, yes, hello everyone. It's time for how's it? Is it just me, or has this week gone really quickly?
It has gone very quickly, Matt. I'll agree with you there, definitely. Yeah, the weeks seem to fly past. We're already like halfway through January.
I know it's like and lockdown as well. It seems to have not sort of made any difference yet. But then I guess because the job you do, people still need stuff to be delivered, and and the job that I'm currently doing requires people still want their wine. So winning. In fact, if anything, we want more wine. But...
I was going to say we're both benefiting here.
Absolutely.
I transport medical equipment, and you transport.
Yes, absolutely.
Medicinal.
Well, yes,
equipment.
It's of a different nature. Yes, medicine, but not as we know it, Jim. Yeah, indeed.
But good to see you in the studio as always, Matt. Making sure everything is going out nice and smooth.
Yeah, save that till we get to the end, will you?
Yeah. So joining us this week as well, it is the connoisseur of all fine wines, especially in first class. It is, of course, Neville Bounds.
Yes, I ran out of wine earlier this week, so I had to go for a quick top-up during the week. But no, all is well. Thank you very much. Hopefully the audio is good this week because I've bought a brand new audio interface, so it might be a bit crisper. Hopefully.
Yes, and I got a bit carried away, Nev. I wonder if I could trouble you to just back off a little tiny
Yes, I thought... I thought that might be the case somehow.
Yes, bit keen. Yes, thank you. That's much more like it. Sorry about it. Still... Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the start of a show without having to adjust some kind of audio. Normally, Armando, that may still yet to be coming. But so have you had a good week, Nev?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Very busy at work. Obviously, still not going anywhere. But lots going on. So very happy to be on the show tonight, as always.
Yeah, it's good to have you on, Nev. And it's nice to see you dressed to the occasion as well. Again,
always.
With a nice, crisp shirt on, as always. Good, Nev. And joining us all the way over in the USA, and he has got his PTUK uniform on. So big round of applause for Armando.
Oh, yay. I get the gold star for being in uniform.
Yeah.
How are you guys? Always happy to be here in live.
Yeah, absolutely. What's this behind you? I need details on the picture that's behind. Just describe it for our audio listeners, please.
Oh, this is a picture from World War II from the 94th Bomb Group at Rougham Airfield, right there outside of Bury St. Edmunds. It's,
wow.
Where I used to fly general aviation. Carlos, Matt, you and I all flew out of that airfield in our little GA airplanes. But this is at its height when it was the busiest.
Wow. Cool picture. I like it.
Are you chilly, Armando? Because that is the PTUK sweatshirt that you've got on there.
It is actually chilly here. The last couple of days, it's been hovering right around 27 degrees Fahrenheit at night, usually in the 40s during the day. And actually, yesterday I did 2 flights, one at night, one at lunchtime, and it's pretty chilly. I'll be flying all day tomorrow, also bundled up.
Are you back in the parachutey plane tomorrow?
No, actually, I've been flying for Civil Air Patrol quite a bit. We did some search and rescue training on Wednesday yesterday, and then night currency. And then this weekend, we'll actually be flying Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC cadets from one of the local universities near Greensboro. And then I'll be in the skydive plane on Sunday.
So potential future pilots you'll be flying then tomorrow.
That's probably my favorite thing in aviation right now, is just mentoring that next generation. And these university cadets, they are already committed to the Air Force, or they can cross over into another service, but they're already going to school in aerospace science. They're on the track to receive an Air Force commission, And these particular cadets are in what's called a flight orientation program, which is obviously kind of mentoring them to be either manned or unmanned pilots. So they get to fly with us before they graduate.
Wow, wow. Now, we have a special guest today, which Carlos will introduce in a moment. But, I mean, both Carlos and Armando, I think it's safe to say, have both had some pretty impressive sim kit in their time. Carlos especially now. I assume yours is all still in a box somewhere, is it, Armando?
It is indeed in a box. And yeah, I am actually really happy to have this guest on because I feel personally responsible for getting Carlos hooked on
it's all your
an
fault,
actual home simulator setup.
Yeah. Gemma will be having words with you at some point about that, no doubt.
Yeah, so joining us this week, well, as Matt said, I have a new piece of kit, which I got for Christmas this year, along with other bits of various kit that I've been treating myself to over the last sort of 12 months since the first lockdown, funnily enough. But yeah, we've got the guest we've got on tonight on the show runs a website and runs a business that sells all bits to do with sims and add-ons and bits you can buy for your home sim. So it gives you great pleasure to welcome onto the show James Brown.
Hello.
Hi, James. How are things with you?
Very slow at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say. How things in the obviously the sim selling world is aching a bit, what with all this Brexit lark. But we'll go over that later on. I think.
Oh come on! You said that word without us having a drink ready. I mean that's not the way forward. Come on, you know the rules.
Yeah, it's good to have you on, James.
Yeah, it's very slow at the moment. I think it's due to the customs of Brexit and stuff causing problems getting stuff from Italy. But hopefully we'll be able to sort that out very soon. Hopefully this and also the SATEC have really gone silly really because they've not got nothing in stock in any of the stores. And it's just slowing everything down. I thought it would be a busy during the lockdown and it's not, it's slow.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll come back to that in more detail later on.
Yes, we will. Absolutely. But Nev, you've got a weekly roundup, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. And just some breaking news today, actually, in the last couple of hours. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced that the UK will close all travel corridors to protect against the risk of as yet any identified new COVID-19 strains. New measures will take effect from Monday at 4 a.m. and all arrivals will now be expected to isolate for 10 days when entering the country. Also, it's 12 years since the miracle on the Hudson, and in reflection and commemoration of the anniversary, Captain Sully Sullenberger posted on his blog about life lessons learned and how to deal with crises both in and out of the cockpit. Speaking specifically about aviation, he wrote, "What do I wish I had known as a young pilot?" Well, he identifies temper your natural optimism of youth with strong doses of reality, be wary and be ready, and lastly, be able to build and lead a team. So that's great stuff, and hard to believe that was 10 years ago that this all happened, wasn't it?
12 years, Nev, 12 years.
12 years, yeah.
Yeah, links to those details, obviously the stories that in our roundup will obviously be in the show notes.
And it's still on my bucket list to get here to actually go and see this aircraft bomb, this A320.
You will do, you'll get there.
I know, at some point, hopefully. Right, so we're going to say a big welcome to everyone who's joined us in the live YouTube chat room this evening. Loads of all the famous faces in there. I say famous faces in there because you are all famous, you are our listeners. Big hello to Lee Davies, Richard Adams. We had Airliners Live in there as well. Alan White, hello to you. Stephen H, Graham Haley, Nick Codling is also in there. Masha, hello to you, Masha. Just scrolling through, Richard Adams. I don't want to miss anyone out. I'm going through, scrolling through, and just make sure I haven't missed anyone. Brandon Plane Spotter 23, hello to you as well. And thanks for joining us in the chat room. Don't forget as well, if you listen to the show as an audio version and you want to join in with the YouTube chat room fun, don't forget to take yourselves over to our YouTube page, youtube.com/planetalkinguk. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, which is right next to it, to be notified when we're live and recording new episodes, because we would love to have you in our chat room family. So make sure you go over there. So I suppose you better start off with some commercial news. So we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from across the world and the UK. So if everyone is ready,
yes,
let's go. So kicking off this week's first news story, and well, it's the first news story that I think everyone's talking about at the minute. The sources for this come from the Av Herald and CTV News, and I think most people would have heard already about that dreadful crash last weekend of flight SJ182. So less than 12 hours after coming off air last week, on the show, we learned of the tragic crash of SJ182, the flight operated by Sriwijaya Air, I hope I pronounced that correctly, a Jakarta-based Indonesian carrier that took off at 0736 UTC from Jakarta bound for Pontianak. I think that's correct. ADS-B information from FlightRadar24.com website showed that the 26-year-old Boeing 737-500 had reached a maximum altitude of 10,900 feet and was last recorded at 250 feet before the signal was lost at 7:40 UTC, just 4 minutes after the aircraft took off. According to airline.net, I should say, a total of 56 passengers and 6 crew were on board, including 7 children and 3 infants. Residents of the islands nearby, Thousand Islands, were out on the sea in 2 boats when they heard 2 explosions and then found debris afloat in the sea. It was raining at the time. The residents returned to their islands about 2 hours later and reported this to the police. The aircraft, registered Papa Kilo Charlie Lima Charlie, had been in storage for nearly 9 months. The US Federal Aviation Administration sent an airworthiness directive requiring operators of various Boeing 737 aircraft models, including the 737-500, to carry out engine checks before they could be flown again after being out of service. Director General of Air Transportation Novi Ridianto said in a statement. He said the plane was inspected on the 2nd of December, including checks for engine corrosion, and was declared airworthy by the Transportation Ministry on December the 14th. The disaster has reignited concerns about safety in the aviation industry, which grew quickly after the economy was opened following a fall in the dictator Suharto in the late 1990s. The United States banned Indonesian carriers from operating in the country in 2007, lifting the action in 2016, citing improvements in compliance with international aviation standards. The European Union lifted a similar ban in 2018. Sriwijaya Air has only minor safety incidents in the past, though a farmer was killed in 2008 when an aircraft went off the runway while landing due to a hydraulic issue. Today, Friday the 15th of January, the Indonesian Navy reported that the pinger of the CVR, the cockpit voice recorder, was found and recovered. However, the CVR's memory unit is still missing. The search for the memory unit is still ongoing. The KNKT, or Indonesian National Transportation Safety Commission, reported that the flight data recorder has been found and the data of the FDR has been successfully downloaded. All 330 parameters recorded are in good condition and are currently being analysed. Now, Armando, am I right in thinking that the part they're missing off that CVR is the black kind of rod that sits on top, or at the one end of the orange data, or the cockpit voice recorder?
Yeah, the memory module, if you want to think about it, is basically just a hard drive that's in there. There's so many different variations of this. Some flight data recorder and CVR combination. Some aircraft have 2 separate, a CVR and an FDR, and then sometimes the memory modules. Now these, as you can imagine, the CVRs are designed to withstand some tremendous impacts. But even then, it's still just a machine. So, they're going to be able to analyze quite a bit of data from the flight data recorder. That's going to give them a pretty good idea of what happened. Now, getting the intent of the pilots from the actual voices inside and the radio communications is going to give them just that much more. But I think within just a few weeks on FDR analysis, we'll probably have a pretty good idea of what was going on. Especially, I hate that this story, in the media, they're reporting this story and then they immediately say, and the MAX crashes in 2019, and they're linking the two things. They're two totally separate things, but having that flight data and the parameters that was going on inside the airplane is going to be really important in an initial analysis, I suppose.
Did you guys, Nev, Matt, and James, did you guys get a chance to see the pictures that were on social media and obviously on Aviation Herald of this crash? Because to me, that honestly, the pieces of aircraft were really, really, really well torn and shredded, and they were not very big pieces at all. The actual aircraft pieces were very, very fragmented.
Yeah, I think the thing is that it's all speculation really is at the moment, and I think that until they actually download the data from the CVR and FDRs, we're never going to know what really happened there. But it was certainly an unusual accident from what I can see. But we'll just have to see what the outcome is.
Yeah, I don't think we should sort of get too involved in speculation or anything like that, should we? But more details will no doubt be forthcoming, I think, is the best thing to say there.
So, Matt, you've got a story all about Norwegian.
I have indeed, and it's not the news that we were hoping for, but I guess some of us are not surprised, really. So the headline is basically Norwegian.com, Bloomberg and Reuters are the sources for this particular story, and the headline is Norwegian ends its long-haul operations. So Thursday morning brought news from Norwegian's board of directors. In a press release, Norwegian Air Shuttle announced a significant shift in focus from a global low-cost carrier to a European short-haul focused airline. Ultimately, this means an end to its long-haul operations. So Jacob Schramm, who's the CEO of Norwegian, said, "Our short-haul network has always been the backbone of Norwegian and will form the basis of a future resilient business model." The board commented that Norwegian's entire Boeing 787 Dreamliner fleet that had been grounded since March 2020, and that future demand remains highly uncertain. Under these circumstances, a long-haul operation is not viable for Norwegian, and we see these operations not continuing any further. They went on to say that simplifying the business structure will build a robust and solid company that will attract investors and continue to serve new and existing customers. The plan will see Norwegian Air Shuttle shrink its fleet to 50 narrow-body aircraft and target a reduced debt to 20 billion Norwegian kroner. That's 1.7 billion pounds in sterling. In December, the airline debt stood at 66.8 billion crowns. That's around about 5.7 billion pounds in sterling. Unfortunately, this announcement comes with around 2,100 job losses, including 1,100 in the UK, and around 300 UK-based pilots will be made redundant, the Balfour Union said in an email statement. The customers with bookings affected by the future changes in our route network will be contacted directly and will be refunded. The examinership and reconstruction process is undertaken in Ireland for Norwegian Air International and Norway for Norwegian Air Norway and associated subsidiaries will continue as planned. Yesterday's announcement is subject to creditor, examiner and reconstructor support and subsequently court approval. I mean, it's not really the news I guess we were sort of hoping for. Now, I know, James, you were saying that actually you've flown with Norwegian not that long ago when we were having a chat. To sort of you've used them sort of a few times.
Yeah, I've been to Los Angeles quite a few times with them, and I've done also Orlando as well, and they were really, really good. Customer service was excellent. and they had a really good way of serving passengers on the aircraft as well. By you could just tap on the screen, and you could just order something on the screen.
Okay, right. No, I like that. So, I mean, just presumably, I mean, obviously the whole model of this was low-cost transatlantic sort of flights here. I mean, how did it compare price-wise to sort of your more traditional carriers like, say, Delta and American Airlines?
It was genius. It was, I like James, I flew on Norwegian from London out to Oakland quite a few times. Every time I was going out to Reno, and I think a couple of times I did the Newark route, and it was incredibly cheap. And for the product, it was great. I really enjoyed Norwegian, and kind of how our good friend Pip is saying in the chat room, we've been talking about Norwegian having these troubles for a long time, but I think this is actually kind of good news. They're going back to where they started, you know, in the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s. They were a regional airline, and they decided to do the low cost model, and it's something that they know. So I really hope that they're able to survive this and kind of come out better here a couple of years from now. But I really, really enjoy the Norwegian Airlines product.
I mean, are they sort of you know, stumbling into an area which more established low cost carriers? I mean, are they? I mean, both of you are saying there that obviously the product is good, and the service is excellent. But can they realistically compete with the likes of Ryanair and people like that for these routes?
I don't think they would be able to compete with Ryanair too much, because they are well established, and Dermot O'Leary said he's on about doing flights from Ireland to the US. I don't know if he's going to start doing that or not.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's. I mean, that's. See, I do think there is legs. I mean, okay, at the moment, obviously, because we've got all this, you know. Apparently, there's a pandemic going on. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I mean, I do think that there is a market out there for transatlantic flights. I guess just not right at the moment.
Yeah, not right at the moment, Matt. Definitely.
Yeah.
But hopefully things will pick up.
Yeah.
What with this vaccine and everything.
Okay. All right.
So Nev, you've got a story that I love this story, but yeah, I can imagine you buying some of this.
Well, I was about to get the credit card out actually when I saw this. Because it was posted up on Wednesday of last week. This is on the businesstraveller.com, and it says that British Airways has created a limited edition range of luggage with the Globetrotter brand, inspired by the airline's BOAC livery. The new BOAC Speedbird suitcases have been handmade in England and incorporate the iconic gold Speedbird insignia and a fragment from a retired British Airways 747 aircraft. The suitcases are made from high-gloss vulcanized fiberboard with a metallic sheen for a pearlescent white shimmer, which is complemented by a navy leather trim on the corners and handles. The hand-painted gold Speedbird insignia adorns the exterior, whilst the 747 fragments decorated the interior. Well, the range is only limited to 150, so I may have left it a bit late. But also, this might be the other reason. And it says they were available to order from Wednesday in Globetrotter's flagship stores. Unfortunately, it says the prices start from £1,935. When I saw 1935, I thought, great, it's
1935. Yes.
Decimal point clearly in the wrong place there.
I thought it was the time it was available. You know, you could order. You could be right.
Yes, not the price. No. Anyway, to launch the range, two of the suitcases were being auctioned via online platforms, bid-in to raise funds for Flying Start, British Airways global charity partnership with Comic Relief. Bids were starting at £2,000 per item, and bids will close next Tuesday, the 19th. So I can imagine there's going to be some serious money changing hands there. But the two suitcases being auctioned were on board British Airways' final 747 flight on December the 11th, which saw the airline's heritage liveried BOAC jumbo jet fly the short distance from British Airways engineering base at Cardiff Airport to its new permanent home in St Athan in South Wales. They've also been signed by the flight's captain, Richard Allen Williams, who's also BA's chief training pilot. Hamish McVeigh, British Airways head of brands and marketing, said, "We are thrilled to be working with Globetrotter to create this very special product and through this unique auction raise money for the vital comic relief projects across the UK and overseas." Well, I must say I was very envious because I quite fancied one of those, even though I can't go anywhere at the moment. But or maybe put some cables in next time we do a OB or something like that. But,
I mean, it's a lovely bit of kit, isn't it?
Very nice.
They do look really nice. I must admit they do look great. But I have to say, Nev, if I was transporting my cameras and lenses about, I think I'd still stick with one of your Pele cases.
Yes, that does take a bit of beating, I must say. But if you want the the pose as value, then I think that BA case takes a bit of beating.
Yeah, I'd make you a deal. I'll send you a couple of my Pelican cases, Nev. If you buy some of these suitcases, and then I'll send you some used military Pelican cases. And then you send me that.
Okay.
I mean, sure, why not? Yeah. What kind of a trade is that, honestly?
I'll have some Pelican cases. Send them my way.
Yes,
Anyway,
okay. Moving on.
We'll stick with you, Armando. We couldn't go the whole show without mentioning the C word. So, Armando, this story's yours.
All right, charge your glasses. It's mentioned about 17 times in the next 1
Oh, wow.
minute,
Okay.
so.
I don't have a drink. Shall I get one?
I think you should.
Okay, great. Yeah.
From the National Business Aircraft
I feel I should get wine for this. I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you can have 7 sips of wine in the next minute. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC, has published a new order requiring pre-departure COVID-19 testing for all passengers arriving to the U.S. from international locations. Starting on January 26th, passengers must be tested no more than 3 days prior to their departure and must provide proof of negative results and documentation documentation of having recovered from COVID-19 to the aircraft operator. According to the CDC, it's important to note this order applies to all aircraft operators, including non-commercial aircraft operators. The CDC defines an aircraft operator as any individual or organization causing or authorizing the operation of an aircraft. This includes business and general aviation operators and must confirm the following for all passengers: the documentation of a negative qualifying test result, that's for passengers aged 2 or older. Personal identifiers on the negative test result must match the passenger's passport or other travel documents. If the passenger is arriving on a direct flight to the U.S., that specimen must have been collected within the 3 calendar days preceding the flight's departure. There are a few exemptions, and that's crew members, provided they follow standard protocols for the prevention of COVID-19 in accordance with FAA guidance. Operators transporting passengers with COVID-19 that have a CDC authorization, federal law enforcement, U.S. military, basically everybody else has to follow these rules. And I think we're covering this. Now, this was widely covered in the news for all commercial operators, as in airlines, but why it's in here this week is a lot of people were turning to business aviation to kind of not escape the rules, but there were more relaxed rules or less stringent regulations and oversight for business aircraft, but that is no longer. So operators like FlexJet, NetJet, any of those, or private companies, they have to follow these rules now.
Wow. Actually, Armando, slightly off topic from what you were referring to there. A chap by the name of John Jester. Does that ring any bells with you?
I know the name, yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, anyway, so I've been in charge of the WhatsApp number over the last sort of month or so, and I got a text from him actually that said, feel free to use them for the show. These were taken at DL400 around about 500 nautical miles west of Hudson Bay in Canada, and these rather stunning pictures. There are several, but unfortunately I had to sort of pick the best one, really, because of the way it is. So somebody's had a little bit of a look at the old Northern Lights.
Oh, the Aurora Borealis.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know a couple times on the show we've asked both passengers and aircrew members what has been your favorite memory, or what's something that stands out in your aviation career? And I think a few of us have said seeing the Northern Lights from the air is just amazing. And John is flying the Queen of the Skies. He's on the 747, and he flies for a large cargo operator. And they have another friend that works for FedEx on the I forget what aircraft he's on, maybe a 777 or something like that. But or 76. He's on a 76, and those guys are always putting up pictures on their social media that is just, oh my gosh, it's just so amazing. And they're crossing over the North Pole like that, going across the world, and cool. Very cool. Thanks, John.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. I must admit, I did share those pictures with my regulars to the show. Will perhaps remember Dan Holly, who's a meteorologist and works for our local TV company doing the weather. And I actually sent those pictures to him, and he was like, "I am proper jealous."
I was actually worried for a second because John has known me since I was 14 years old. So when you said you had received pictures from John Jester.
Okay, but leave that with me.
Almost immediately, I wanted to shut down my feed.
Right, okay, go home. Yes, okay, no, fair enough. Anyway, sorry, as a slight move, slightly off topic there, but I thought worth sharing with everyone. Lovely pictures.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, anybody else seen the whatever it was Carlos called it a minute ago?
The Aurora Borealis.
Yeah, again, bless you.
Thank you.
Nev, have you had the pleasure?
Not from the air, no. But I when I went to the very north of Sweden many years ago, of course, in the summer it doesn't get dark at all. But in the winter, it barely gets light. And when it's on a very clear sky, you can certainly see something along the lines of this. But if you're actually flying when you see it, it's absolutely spectacular.
Anything like this for you, James? Have you been so lucky?
No, I've not been that lucky. Oh, I wish I had.
Yeah, I know. I bet it's one of those things, isn't it, that must be just like the most amazing thing to see in the world. Anyway, okay, who's next? Sorry, I got slightly off topic there. Carlos is next, apparently.
Thank you, Matt. This next story, and we all love a boom, 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 but this story is not about the Venga boys. This comes to us from.
Are you feeling all right, Carlos? Do you need to lie down? Is that what it is? Just like,
comes to us from.
I feel like we need to explain who the Venga boys are now to our audience. Thanks for that.
They'll be googling it now.
Right. I hope not, for their own browser history's sake. Anyway,
Simple Flying, UKAviation.news, and Twitter as well. And this was in the UK, actually. The headline was "Sonic booms heard over the UK as part of the Royal Air Force Typhoon intercept unresponsive private jet." So members of the public in Essex, Hertfordshire, Cambridgeshire and London reported hearing a sonic boom as a Royal Air Force Typhoon aircraft raced to intercept a private jet over London. The private jet in question was a Bombardier.
I have no words.
Thank you. Global Express, registration Delta Alpha Foxtrot Alpha Lima, owned by FAI Aviation, Rent-A-Jet. The plane was en route to Birmingham from Nuremberg in Germany when its radio went silent about an hour into its flight, prompting the RAF to issue a quick reaction alert, or QRA, as most of us know. Two Eurofighter Typhoon aircraft launched from RAF Coningsby earlier in the day, and the UK's QRA defence system in order to intercept the jet in question. The jet was escorted to London Stansted Airport, where it landed safely. The Bombardier remained grounded at Stansted Airport for a couple of hours before Essex Police decided all was found to be in order. The jet took off just after 3 p.m. and flew to Birmingham, landing half an hour late. After an hour at Birmingham Airport, the plane departed again for its final destination of Barbados. Very nice. The Royal Air Force Typhoon jets are understood to have flown up to Mach 1.6. 1.6 times the speed of sound in order to intercept the flight, although they are capable of flying at twice the speed of sound, or Mach 2.0 and above. The QRA scenario is the only time the aircraft are allowed to fly supersonic over land. After the incident, the Royal Air Force released a video with particular focus on those in homeschooling now, explaining how sonic booms occur. Now, I remember when the story broke on social media, someone on Twitter had posted a video from one of those doorbell cams, ring cam, I think this is something that's called.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, the video and the video didn't really matter. You can't see the jet anyway. But the audio was actually quite good, and it was blooming loud. I will say it was fairly loud, but yeah.
Yeah, so we actually have the video that Carlos mentioned there in the story. So for anyone homeschooling, this may be of some use to you. Yeah, okay. Okay, so for the benefit of our audio listeners, we're actually going to just describe the video to you. So basically, this homeschooling video that the RAF have released is talking all about the sonic boom. So first of all, what is a sonic boom? And... so a subsonic speed below 767 miles per hour. Pressure waves move away from the aircraft in all directions. The speed of sound, 767 miles per hour. The waves compress to create a shock wave. The waves merge into a single shock wave cone. And then the cone creates a thunderous sonic boom along the width of the cone's base. There we go. It is a noise. We hear it very occasionally. I think I've heard one once here. With probably I blame Armando for that.
There are no aircraft at RAF Mildenhall, where I was stationed, that come even close to going supersonic. So okay. you can blame those guys. Yeah,
I'm sure that Cub you flew, Armando, had a tendency to push the envelope.
I don't know about that, but just like we did at Mildenhall, you can blame those cool fighter guys over at RAF Lakenheath. and Huntington.
Yeah. Right, good.
Marham, not Huntington, Marham.
Okay, anyway, moving on.
So moving from booms, sonic booms, we're going to go over to something else that is fairly quick with this next story, Armando.
Yep, just like we're talking about, it's America, so we're going to take something that's currently illegal and just say, you know what, we got plenty of space, we're going to make it legal. Supersonic aircraft just got a big old boost from the Federal Aviation Administration. A new ruling will allow limited testing of Mach 1 plus aircraft over land. Until now, supersonic aviation technology leaders like Aviation, Boom, and Spike were limited to testing over water. So the FAA still prohibits unlimited supersonic flight over U.S. soil, but it does open a path for exemptions for testing experimental aircraft. So the FAA is also hoping to prompt aviation authorities in other countries to move in a similar direction, although you guys seem to be ahead of us in the UK allowing this, so that transcontinental supersonic flight could become a reality in the next 8 years, very specific. Tom Weiss, the chairman of Aviation, called the ruling a significant milestone for supersonic flight. In their case, their AS-2 will be the first supersonic aircraft to enter commercial service in 51 years, right? That's since Concorde. And this gives our company the ability to test it over land in addition to the overwater testing currently planned. Boom, the other aircraft manufacturer which we've featured on the show, their aircraft, the Overture, is expected to begin testing in 2026, but this ruling opens the way for testing of its smaller aircraft later this year. Boom went on to say that it was pleased with the ruling. It has developed the working Baby Boom XB-1 aircraft to test. This next generation of supersonic aircraft makers have placed fuel sustainability, noise reduction, and this infamous sonic boom that we're talking about at the heart of their R&D programs. Aviation uses what it calls caustic layers of temperature inversion to fly over Mach 1 to reflect the sonic boom upwards into the atmosphere so it never actually reaches the ground. It also plans to use a renewable biofuel to limit its emissions. So these new regulations, which specifically allow for noise testing, make it possible to monitor how well boomless cruise technology works over land. Aircraft manufacturers will need to apply for permission before each test.
Now, I've got an interesting question here, actually. What James, I don't know if this is something, is like a sonic boom something you can create like in a simulation type thing with flying your home sims and stuff? Can you pretend you're essentially doing that?
Yeah, I think you can. If you get like the, was it the F-18 or something, you can actually hear it go into the sonic boom if you go fast enough, yes.
Oh, wow. I suppose that would depend on how good your headphones are. As to what sort of have you tried it in like a 737, Carlos?
No, I've tried to overspeed on the sim on X-Plane 11, and you just get that clack 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 noise on the sim, and it overspeeds. And then if you've got the sim set up properly, it'll say aircraft overstressed, and the sim will finish.
Right. Oh dear.
Well, you know what's interesting, Matt, is if you're in the airplane, you don't actually hear the sonic boom. Because you're ahead of all those waves.
Oh, I see. Right, yeah.
True,
Yeah,
true.
That makes
you
sense.
only hear it if you're outside the airplane or on the ground.
Honestly, you can always rely on the yes, this is the military guy taking all the fun out of the story.
But you know how a pilot went Mach 1? You can see the smile on his face.
Yes, true. That is very true, yes. Okay. All right. Okay, yeah. Next story then. Who's up next? I don't know.
Yep. So moving on with the next story, Nev, you've got some nice. This is a good story, a nice news story.
We're trying to mix, the good and bad stories.
Yeah.
This is
Yin
a good
and yang. Yeah.
place to say. Exactly. This is from the cityam.com website. It says that EasyJet crew members will join Virgin Atlantic staff in working with the NHS on the UK's vaccine rollout, the airline said today. The announcement came after Virgin said that it had called on cabin crew, pilots and office-based staff to assist with the national effort to save lives. Crew who apply will be fast-tracked to become trained vaccinators at NHS vaccination centres across the country. Some 3,000 EasyJet staff are currently on furlough, and the carrier said that they had the ideal skills to help with the rollout efforts. It expects hundreds of its staff to volunteer for the programme. The airlines will work with the NHS and St John's Ambulance Service at mass vaccination centres around the country on a voluntary basis. A spokesman for Virgin confirmed yesterday to City AM that the plea had been sent to 6,000 Virgin Atlantic staff and that the company had so far received huge interest from furloughed employees. It comes as the government last night set a UK roadmap to vaccinate 2 million people a week by the end of January as part of its COVID-19 vaccines delivery plan. Matt Hancock, the UK's Secretary of State for Health, said that the government would turn to volunteers from all parts of the NHS, retired clinicians, pharmacists, airline cabin crew, the armed service, St John's Ambulance and the Royal Voluntary Service to vaccinate the country. Vaccines are important and I care about them because I want our country to get back to normal as fast as possible, the Health Secretary told a Downing Street press conference. I wanted to have a great British summer. My team and I are working fast to deliver this as soon as possible. Well, that's great, isn't it? And also, of course, airline crew, both cockpit crew, flight deck crew, and in the cabin already have some fundamental first aid skills as well as part of their training. So they are, and they're used to working in sort of life safety and critical environments. So they're very well tuned to do this sort of thing, I would have thought. So, yeah, looks...
yes,
looks
although the only thing I would say against that now, my cousin is a very experienced nurse, and she works for Macmillan, actually, as one of their key support, workers. And so she's volunteered to actually do exactly that. So she's volunteered to actually be part of the programme for doing the vaccinations and all that kind of thing. And now she has a nursing background, and she reckons that the routines involved in actually giving this vaccination are like you are being trained to be a nurse. And she was saying actually she was a bit worried that this particular program might be putting keen volunteers off, because I mean I know you need to have an understanding of the risks and everything all involved, but I do worry that it's being sort of made too hard. And you've got all, as you say, you've got EasyJet joining Virgin crews to sort of give out this vaccine. I think
there was a lot of red tape actually. All sorts of, I think there was 21 exams or videos that you had to watch online. I think a lot of that has gone away. I think it was ridiculous to have it in the first place, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
People that are used to working with the general public, especially in very responsible roles like that, I would have thought they could be trained fairly quickly to administer.
Agreed, absolutely. That was very much the comments that my cousin made, really.
I think we need this, guys, don't we? Especially in the UK, well, we need it all around the world, but in the UK, we need, with the numbers that they've got, that they want to have receive the vaccine, we need kind of some extra
I must admit,
hands on deck.
I did do something I haven't done for a while, actually. Nev, you'll be proud of me, because I sat down and watched the briefing today, and I must admit I was very satisfied. Not only was lip syncs all A-OK this time round, you'll be amazed to know, but actually I must admit, you know they're doing really well with it's over 3 million vaccinations have already taken place already. I'm sort of really excited that we might actually be doing something really well in this country. I'm sort of kind of excited for that, really. But also, Hugh Pym did also forget to unmute his microphone. That was also quite hilarious.
And I thought the colour correction on one of the cameras was a bit off.
A little bit over, yes.
In the grand scheme of things, it's not a showstopper.
No, indeed, absolutely. Anyway, we better move on before we get told off. Carlos, you're next.
Yeah, so this next story, this really did make me chuckle when I found this on the news feeds this week. And this is in the UK. This comes to us from the Gloucestershire Live.co.uk website. This is brilliant. So the headline, door of a small aircraft found on the M4 motorway by police. So parts of a plane are not common cause of roadblocks on the UK motorways, but nevertheless, police had to intervene when a door from an aircraft was found on the M4. Police had to remove the door of a small aircraft from blocking the lane of a motorway near Swindon on Saturday, January the 9th. Showing pictures of the large door on Twitter, Wiltshire Police said, unusual debris, what appears to be a door from a light aircraft removed from a lane on the M4 near Swindon on Saturday, January the 9th. If the owner would like to come forward to collect it, please do get in touch. #insecure-load. And the tweet left many wondering where exactly the rest of the aircraft had gone. For now, the lane was made clear and the unexpected debris was taken away by the police. But they say do get in touch if you spot the wing or anything else anywhere off the aircraft.
Now, I think to be fair, we were saying in the group chat, weren't we, during the week? I mean, I assume this has fallen off a lorry, because if nothing else, if it had fallen off an aircraft in the air, it certainly wouldn't be in that state, would it? I mean, it would be quite a bit more buckled and bent.
I don't know. I was talking about this to one of the guys who I used to fly with at Beccles, and the doors on the 150s, you can take those off. Armando will know this as well. But you can actually take the doors. There's a couple of pins, and you can actually remove the doors. And actually, aircraft doors on Cessnas and Pipers and stuff, they're not hugely heavy. They're not really heavy pieces of.
No, I know. But if what's the average height that you would be flying? Say it was you were in your Cessna. What would the average height be of that aircraft if you were just going? I mean,
if you're milling around, I mean, you're probably somewhere in a region of, I don't know, kind of about 2,000-3,000 feet. I suppose,
right. Okay. Now, so if this fell from 3,000 feet,
it would hurt.
Yeah, well, also, do you think it would still be in that shape with the unharmed perspex and things like that?
If you look at the bottom left-hand side of the picture, where
it's had a small bump where it fell off a lorry.
Armando, what do you think? How often in the US do you have pieces of like aircraft on your motorways?
He's not available at the moment. He's just popped.
Oh, he's on a phone call. Okay, fair enough. He's on.
But no, I'm with Matt. I'm afraid this fell off a lorry. No two ways about it.
What, off the back of a lorry now?
Oh, possibly. Yeah.
I don't know what the chat room has said. No, anything from the chat room on there? No one's lost, because we do actually. Don't forget, guys, we do have quite a few members of our community who are in the chat room each week who do fly light aircraft. So perhaps they might. Actually, Nev,
it's too undamaged. That's
looking at the picture. I would have said that's a Piper. A door of a Piper.
It could be, doesn't it? Yes, the paint job looks like it could be, and the shape of it possibly, yeah. But yes, I think if that had fallen from 2,500 feet, that might be in a different.
We need Stephen Ivy.
Yeah. Richard Adams has said in the chat room it's not his, so that's good news.
Graham Haley
confirmed. Yeah.
Graham Haley in the chat room says PA-38 Tomahawk seemed to be the general Twitter consensus.
Yeah. Oh, right. Gosh, so I do love it when they do a lot more research than we do. It's brilliant.
So if you are listening to the show and you have lost a door off your aircraft, do get in touch with the local constabulary.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we are going to. I've just realised I've chosen chosen the wrong camera. One moment, caller. There we are. That works really well on an audio podcast, doesn't it? So now it's time for a very popular segment of the show. It's time to welcome back the Plain Truth. And this week, myself and Captain Al were talking all about loading and balancing. Hello and welcome to another Plain Truce, and this week we're going to be talking about load and balancing. Joining me as always is your friend, it's my friend, it's everyone's friend, it is the legend that is Captain Al. Hi Captain Al.
Hello there, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm very good, thank you, very good. So I suspect literally this is probably quite a loaded question.
Oh dear. Well, you've been spent ages on that one, haven't you?
We'll gloss over that and move on. So my question today is very, very simple, probably to you anyway. But obviously, we've been hearing stories of late in these, shall we say, very strange times, where airliners, which were perhaps just ferrying mostly people around, are doing chores where they're carrying freight. Now, I knew that freight was always being carried by passenger airliners and stuff. So, I mean, what really are the processes in deciding how you load the aircraft? And does that have an impact about where passengers can sit, for example? So are there areas that are blocked off because of the load that's underneath that you as a passenger are completely unaware of?
Okay, so let's go back a few steps and consider the fact that an aeroplane has limits as to how much weight it can carry and where that weight is situated. So quite clearly, if you put all the weight in the back of the aeroplane, you run the risk of it tipping onto its tail. If you put all the weight on the front of the aeroplane, you run the risk of it not being able to get airborne on takeoff. It's just a simple equation, really. An aeroplane's very much like a seesaw, a kid's seesaw. So you need to manage where the center of gravity is quite carefully. So when they design the aeroplane, they create what's called an envelope. So it's basically a geometrical shape, and it determines as a function of one side of the graph the weight, and on the other axis of the graph where the center of gravity is allowed to exist. So like I say, you can't put a load of heavy people in the tail and expect the aeroplane to not tip on its tail. It's balanced on wheels on the ground, and it's aerodynamically balanced in flight. So we have those limits. Quite clearly there are weight limits and there are balance limits. So when we load an aeroplane, we have to keep the load, whether it be passengers or freight or bags or anything else that we're putting on the aeroplane, within that envelope. We normally do that by electronic means. Now, typically, an aeroplane that's being used for passenger transport, so like a 320 or a 737, has the ability to be full of passengers and be within its loading limitations. Clearly, it's not a lot of point having an aeroplane if you say, fill all the seats, but you can't then take off because it's out of balance. So they create an aeroplane that has operational functionality. But you can encounter unusual circumstances that falls outside of what the designers thought would be the normal role. So one example of that would be, say, for example, the carriage of PPE, which I'll come to in just a sec. But there are occasions, for example, where, say, on an A321, which is by nature quite a tail-heavy aeroplane. So naturally, when it's kind of empty, there's a fair amount of weight in the tail. It's quite a long aeroplane, so just like a seesaw, if you put weight down the tail, like the APU, then the longer the lever is, the more of a moment it has. So when we are loading and unloading the A321, we have to be careful that we don't end up with too much weight, i.e. passengers, bags or cargo in the tail and not enough at the front. And it will quite happily sit on its tail if you don't manage that carefully. So equally, when you're attempting to fly the aeroplane, there are scenarios where you have to give some consideration. So if, for example, you fill an A321 up with people, so about 220 people. But for whatever reason, none of those people have any suitcases. So say, for example, they're just on a day trip, so they're not taking any luggage with them. You cannot then fill the aeroplane up with fuel unless you put ballast in. So in other words, lots of big bags of sand or water to balance it out. Now, not many airports have several tons of ballast just lying around. So it's not uncommon to use bottled water as ballast because, of course, you can then take it off and reuse it. You can argue about the merits of having lots of water sloshing around the aircraft, but ultimately, if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. So there are some careful loading issues to be resolved. Now, when we've started to use passenger aircraft for the carriage of PPE, there are some issues. First of all, PPE is relatively light, but it's quite bulky. But if you put lots and lots of boxes of relatively light stuff in, it still does have weight and therefore has to be carefully loaded and, importantly, secured. So initially, when we started seeing passenger aircraft being used to carry PPE, we saw lots of boxes kind of being secured into seats with seat belts and so forth. And the regulators and the manufacturers looked around, no, we're not happy about that. Because if you've ever tried to secure a box in your car with a seatbelt, it's just not designed to do that. It's designed to fit around a human being, not something that's square. And we tend to be a bit more round. So then you started to see aircraft with PPE in boxes in seats, but then big cargo nets put over the top of it. And then more latterly, people have taken the seats out of aircraft and then been able to use more conventional sort of securing methods. But nonetheless, it is still a very delicate balancing act, no pun intended, to get the weight and balance within the correct envelope. Not least because you have to operate it safely, but depending on where you've got the weight and balance of the aircraft has quite a considerable impact on the fuel burn. So if you have all the weight down one end, for example, the front, that's not very efficient because you've got to pull the nose up to fly. So on some of the bigger aircraft, so like a 330, there is a fuel tank in the tail, and the aircraft will move fuel fore and aft to basically affect the balance of the aeroplane in flight. And we always used to joke with some of the more heavyweight cabin crew that when we used to have our lunch served to us and the heavyweight cabin crew would come to the front, we would then have to pump fuel down the back to counteract their weight suddenly moving forward. They used to joke that it was simply the weight of our foods that they were having to bring to satisfy our appetites.
Okay. And so the banter continues. Yes,
yeah. Now, to be honest, the problems don't really vary from wide body to narrow body. It's just a simple fact that the bigger the aircraft, if you like, the more opportunity there are to fit things in and for not to have an effect. It's just a scale of proportion. So in a small aeroplane, sort of like a PA-28, the weight of the person sat in row 2 is significant. But in an A380, the weight of the person sat in row 2 is less significant because there are a lot more rows. So wide body, narrow body, it's not really a case of how many aisles there are. It's more a function of the size of the aeroplane. So, and indeed, if you fly on some of the small aircraft that are used as public transport airliners, if you like, so say, for example, inter-island flights in Scotland, or in the Channel Islands, you will actually physically, as a passenger, get on a weighing scales so that they know your exact weight for weight and balance. On larger aircraft, we use something called standard weights, which are just average weights, because whether someone is 75 kilos or 80 kilos, that 5 kilos isn't a big deal on the grand scheme of things if you're carrying 230 tons of weight. But on a small aeroplane, yeah, it's a big deal. Is that helpful?
Absolutely, and that is a brilliant place to bring a rather sort of... It's great. You've simplified a very complicated subject, which I'm grateful for. Captain Al, as always, many thanks.
You're most welcome.
If you want to take your knowledge to the next level, sign up for a subscription at the A320 Lounge. Our online video courses combine whiteboard-style lessons with full failure demonstrations shot in 4K in state-of-the-art simulators using a professional production team. Go into your next simulator session with confidence, having seen failures run in real time and with the background knowledge to answer any questions from your instructor. To get more information and to sign up, visit a320lounge.com.
And a big thanks to my dad, actually, for suggesting that subject, I should say, for this week's Plain Tales. So I hope it... Not Plain Tales. Oh,
wrong
blimey.
podcast.
Plain Truths. Sorry, wrong podcast.
Still, Nick will be grateful for the shout out, I'm sure.
No, well, bless him.
Actually, we will be hearing from Nick later on, actually, because we've got another part of the George Lee interview coming up in a little while.
Oh, good.
No, we don't even have to say anything. We can just tell Nick that we're starting to receive feedback for Plain Tales with us.
Yay. So we have actually... We have actually got some listener feedback from the Plain Truths. This is from episode 22, Language of Aviation. What's our vector Victor? From Ben I. Says Zulu is simply the letter assigned to GMT. Every time zone by full hour around the world has a letter starting with A in Paris and moving east to M, then resetting to the Azores with N and moving west to Y. He says, but there are 24 hours and 26 letters, you exclaim. Well, you will notice that Y and M are actually the same time, but different offsets to account for the movement of the date line. So they are all the same time on different days. Then we also use Z or Zulu for GMT, UTC, and J is the local time zone in any specific location. If you said 0700 Bungie Juliet or
Bungie?
Bravo Juliet, who's put Bungie on there? Bungie Juliet, Bravo Juliet. That's the same thing as saying 7 a.m. Bravo local time. Bungie local time.
Have we got like one of those sort of Anchorman moments where whatever it is that Nev types in the notes, Carlos is going to read out? Is that your doing, Carlos?
No, that's not my. I never adjust the show notes.
I blame Nev. Yeah, you never read the show notes. That's
Oh, sorry, I'm taking a leaf out of your book, Mr. Smith.
Anyway, carry on.
Anyway, do you want to take the next one, Nev?
Yeah, actually, on episode 21 on how to fly an airliner, also from Ben I, he says, interestingly, Matt, an ATC license works in a similar fashion in that we have the overall license to which we attach ratings. These are the style of ATC tower or aerodrome control. In licensing speak, approach, two variants, radar and non-radar. The latter isn't for if the radar fails, it's meant for locations that do not have a radar at all. And area, again, radar and non-radar. Area is everything that isn't approach or tower in simple terms. Pilots call this position center. On the end are endorsements, which are location and position specific, related to where you are currently working. So as an example, my license has all 5 ratings obtained throughout my career, which are perpetual. But currently I only have my radar approach control rating active, to which are attached endorsements on West Beach, approach east, West Beach approach west, West Beach approach north, and West Beach radar, which is the position that looks after the parts that are outside of the controlled airspace. These are all segments of the West Beach approach airspace, which can be open in combination or separately as suits the traffic situation. But obviously you can't work airspace you aren't qualified on, even if it's combined with airspace you are. So like Al can't currently jump on a 737 despite having previously flown them, I can't jump into a tower or centre position, even if it's West Beach, because I've not recently controlled that style or rating. that needs a refresher training course. So there you go. That was a very sophisticated and exemplary answer to a simple question.
I've got a headache now. I don't know about anyone. There's quite a list of things.
It's worth just saying as well, if anyone does have any comments, that is always a good way of getting back to us as well by leaving a comment on the YouTube.
Absolutely. Or getting in touch with the show directly. Our email address is podcast@planetalkinguk.com, and also it is we do have a WhatsApp number as well, +44 757 2249166. That's +44 757 2249166, and that comes straight through to the studio here, and then we can put your pictures and messages up on screen in the middle of the show. But also don't forget social media searches as well. As a search for us on social media, Plane Talking UK. If you've got any ideas, we're actually going to be sitting down and getting another recording session put together very soon with Captain Al. So if you've got any ideas or topics that you'd like us to talk to Al about, then make sure you get in touch. podcast@planetalkinguk.com.
Big hello to everyone who has just joined us all over from Airshow World.
I think Stu's in there as well, actually, which is nice. Hi, Stu.
Stu's in there, Big hello. Greetings to you all. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Indeed. Just in time for the best part of the show.
It is, because it is time to hand over control of the show to our registered military authoritarian. And it is, of course, Armando.
Yeah, guys, it's just past 8 p.m. in Europe. Everybody should be getting ready to go out to the restaurants and the bars. So let's get everybody jazzed up by talking about some military. Matt, hit the button. We're going to start out with a two-parter story. So this first part is from thedrive.com. You can now buy the Royal Air Force's impressive Sentinel radar planes, but only in pieces. So according to The Drive, they report that the axe has finally fallen on the United Kingdom's unloved Sentinel R1 radar planes after the government announced plans to sell them. Any potential customers should be aware, however, that the 5 aircraft, which are based on the Bombardier Global Express.
Bombardier! Sorry.
Thank you. Are only being offered in the form of spare parts. That aircraft, or the aircraft, which are yet to be formally withdrawn, entered service in 2007, began flying operationally over Afghanistan the following year. In the past, the War Zone has looked in detail at the UK's Royal Air Force Sentinel, the capabilities of which suggest that it might have been possible to find a buyer interested in taking the aircraft as a complete system and putting them back into service. Instead, they'll be dismantled and harvested as reusable parts, I suppose. So the sale of the Sentinels, together with a pair of E3 Sentry AWACS, or Airborne Warning and Control Systems, was recently announced on the UK government's website, which provided the following notice. The Defence Equipment Sales Authority, or DESA, is inviting expressions of interest from companies interested in being considered for receiving an invitation to tender in respect of the proposed sale of the aircraft for stripping, so to harvest all reusable parts for potential resale, recycling, or disposal, and final dismantling and removal of the remaining platforms. I had no idea that they could write that in anything other than English.
I mean, they look like English words.
Yeah, that's what I think about Italian when I'm speaking Spanish.
Right. Okay. Now I've got some pictures here. Are they? Some pictures, yes. I've got some pictures, very posh. So I've got some pictures here. Am I popping them up now, sir?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So as you can see, this I'll finish the story while these pictures are actually, I think they're pretty aircraft, but we've mentioned the Bombardier.
I mean, they're very grey.
I know, that's pretty. It's a pretty shade of gray. How many shades of gray?
At least 50.
Yeah. So meanwhile, these two Sentry aircraft, they comprise airframes that were put into storage at their base at RAF Waddington in Lincolnshire last year as part of the drawdown of the RAF's Airborne Early Warning and Control fleet. The they are all being replaced by the E7 Wedgetail. I think we did a story on that. The first one had just gotten there last year at some point. The Sentinel, which has been operated over Iraq, Libya, Mali, Syria, will be retired without a direct replacement. But in related news from Flight Global, Matt just popped a picture of, the UAE signs a $1 billion GlobalEye fleet expansion deal. They've exercised an option to acquire a further pair of GlobalEye surveillance aircraft from Saab. They're actually Bombardier Global Expresses. Announcing the deal on the 4th of January, the Swedish company said that the business is valued at just over $1 billion. A contract was signed on December 30th, 2020, with the work to be performed by 2025. Saab received originally a 2-aircraft contract from the UAE in November 2015, with the customer later ordering a 3rd example. It's announced its intention to further increase the fleet to 5 aircraft during the Dubai Air Show in November of 2019. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just reminiscing about air shows.
Yeah, in general, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so the CEO, Michael Johansson, said that they are proud that the United Arab Emirates continues to show great trust in Saab and our solutions. The GlobalEye program is running according to plan, and we have an efficient cooperation with the customer. The UAE received its first Bombardier Global 6000 based GlobalEye in April 2020, with the second having followed on later in September. I can see that Ned is falling asleep, so I'm just going to wrap this up by saying...
I was just waiting for you to pronounce all those Swedish names.
I strategically hopscotched right over all of them. Having this kind of fleet is important to any Air Force, and especially nowadays when everything is based on technology. Some of these aircraft are actually airborne networking platforms where you can have essentially internet on the ground being beamed down or rebroadcast up to a satellite. They can serve as communications repeaters, as well as providing all kinds of surveillance. And as G.I. Joe knows, knowing is half the battle. So.
True that. Carlos, you've got the next story.
Yeah, this one comes to us from Flight Global, and I know this is a military segment, but hey, Armando, this is based on a commercial aircraft. But anyway, Boeing delivers 14 KC46A tankers in 2020, receives a contract for a dozen more. So Boeing delivered 14 KC46A in-flight refueling tankers in 2020 to the US Air Force, exactly half of what it delivered the year before. The company struggled in 2020 to deliver tankers on time to its main customer due to design and manufacturing problems, as well as interruptions to production caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Drink away. Despite issues, the US Air Force awarded Boeing a $1.7 billion contract for 12 additional KC-46A tankers, the company said on the 12th of January. The manufacturer has delivered 42 tankers to 4 different bases since January 2019. Boeing is now on contract for 79 KC-46A tankers. The company is also on contract for 4 tankers for Japan, the first example of which is under construction at its Everett, Washington facility. Last October, the manufacturer took a $67 million loss on the KC-46A program, bringing total losses to about $5 billion. The aircraft has been plagued by manufacturing and design problems, especially a refueling boom camera that produces warped or washed out images. Should have put a GoPro on there. That camera system is being redesigned to the tune of $551 million. They could buy a lot of GoPros with that much money, all at Boeing's expense because the program is funded through fixed price contracts. Nonetheless, Boeing said in October that it believed the program was turning a corner. The tanker has been a drag on us, they said, for like 3 or 4 years in every way you can think with respect to investors. But we are beginning to clear that hurdle with our customers and with respect to its performance in their fleet and then their need for that tanker, said David Coulthard, Boeing chief executive, on a third quarter earnings call. So the whole relationship, I believe, he said, will begin to transition next year. And as opposed to begin a drag on our franchise, it's been, I believe, will become a strength in our franchise. So the KC46, based on the Boeing 767 commercial airliner. But they had, I think, was it this? I'm sure that was this one, Armando. They had the issues with when they found, was this the one they had? They found pieces of bits and bobs lying everywhere.
FOD.
Yeah, FOD.
Yeah, it was just after the Boeing had shut down the MAX production line. The KC46 was found to have these manufacturing deficiencies, and there were tools and left underneath the floorboards, and there were screws, and that was in addition to the camera system not working. So as the article was talking about, so this was plagued with issues, but they still managed to deliver, 14 of them at least.
Do you not think they could have just saved a lot of money, Armando, and used GoPros?
Yeah, probably. I'm sure there's some commercial solution or commercial off-the-shelf solution that probably could do the same thing. And some of these action cameras do have a night or IR capability. Yeah, there's a question in the chat room. Captain Cruz says or asked, considering that the U.S. Air Force still has hundreds of KC-135s, that actually sounds like a small order. Probably pays off a year of max storage. Yeah, we did a story. I remember last year that the KC-135, it's a toss-up right now whether it's going to be that or the B-52. Which one is going to reach 100 years in service first? And I think the KC-135 is going to do it if it makes it to probably 2057, 2056, something like that. I think.
We have a lot of those flying around here. Me and Matt are lucky where we live. We have a lot of KC-135s flying in and around our area here.
Well, yeah, it was about 10 years ago they started getting re-engined, and that put a whole new life into them.
So Nev, you've got one all about test pilots.
Yes, it's on the dcmilitary.com website, and it says test pilots learn how flight testing of all electric commuter aircraft is pushed to the boundaries. Well, the promise of all electric commuter aircraft is smooth, carefree travel to and from busy urban centres. But as the engineers who are designing such aircraft can attest, it takes a lot of work to make such flights appear effortless. Back in November, students at the US Naval Test Pilot School and others interested in the future of aviation technology had an opportunity to learn about some of those challenges from Gurno Lutz, the lead flight test engineer at Lilium, a company in Munich that is building a 5-seat electric regional air mobility aircraft called the Lilium Jet. The US Naval Test Pilot School hosted the presentation as part of its quarterly innovation speaker series, which features military and civil aviation pioneers discussing cutting-edge technologies and exploring how innovation and risk are balanced in unique ways. Well, the Lilium Jet is powered by 36 ducted electric motors mounted on 4 wings, which pivot to provide vertical thrust for takeoff and landing and horizontal thrust for forward flight. The aircraft does not have traditional control surfaces such as ailerons or rudders, relying instead on the engines to provide nearly instantaneous thrust in the desired direction. It's quiet as well. Lilium's promotional materials say that it will be as loud as a passing truck on takeoff and inaudible from the ground when cruising above 1,300 feet. The operational version of the Lilium Jet will have a range of 186 miles and conveniently cruise at 186 miles per hour. The test allowed the Lilium engineers to assess hover flight characteristics, including ground effect, forward speed, bank angles, and climb and descent performances. Lutz said that the 2 factors made the envelope expansion test difficult: the flight control mechanical characteristics and the latencies of the download links. Test pilots have a very important role to play in the development of innovative aircraft systems in the private sector, he said. A former Royal Australian Air Force Research and Development engineer and a 2014 graduate of the Empire Test Flight Pilot School. Efficiency is a primary consideration when developing a flight test strategy, but it should never compromise a methodical approach. It's also important to understand risks and to clearly communicate them to the engineering team and to management, Lutz added. Ultimately, if you want to push the boundaries of technology, you have to take risks somewhere. He said, we're very selective about where we take risks and careful to only take these risks in areas where we can afford it and fully understand it. He also encouraged his audience to seek out the strengths and knowledge from all members within their own teams. Some colleagues may have a completely different way of thinking about problems and identifying solutions which may benefit your test program. As technologies and capabilities continue to advance, old assumptions may no longer be valid, and flight test engineers need to be open to new ideas and new ways of doing things, he said. Though safety should always remain a bedrock of any flight test program, no matter how innovative. Always challenge yourself to be open to new ideas and new ways of doing things, he said. So this is going to be a brand new piece of work for doing test flying for these new electric aircraft. It'll be very interesting to see how this comes along.
I mean, is it just me? It almost seems like with sort of since like the Faraday project came along, it's just it's really, the envelopes are really being pushed at the moment. Like everybody's giving it a go currently.
Well, it is the wave of the future, and if you guys remember, we had Sean Van Hatten on. I'm sure John is going to scream the episode number into my episode 327. The voices tell me. So back in episode 327, we had Sean Van Hatten on, and he was talking about how much planning goes into a test flying a brand new airframe, which he was doing with the Stratos jet. And then additionally, with Neil from Faraday, those guys are pushing the boundaries of the legalities of flight testing and certification and challenging the traditional thought about multi-engine. What is a multi-engine aircraft? Is it considered multi-engine when it has multiple propellers but one actual motor, or is it because of the aerodynamics? And these companies that are out there innovating new forms of transportation, air transportation, are really making everybody think about where we're going to go in the future. Now, of course, they thought about this whole thing when the jet age came around, right? When we were flying, what is it, Sid, the Clippers that Captain Nick grew up on, and that's the real story. You know, he flew on those airplanes, and when you're talking about multi-engine seaplanes. And then the jet age suddenly comes around, and everything was contemporary thinking at the time was challenged. So I think we're going to see a lot more of these stories.
Good. I mean, it's got to be a good thing, isn't it? Anyway, we'll move on to the last story now, and this is a sad story, but we'll look at it as a sort of a positive as well. So the RAF Spitfire woman, Eleanor Wadsworth, dies aged 103. This is from the Guardian.com. So a trailblazing pilot who was one of the last surviving women to have taken on the task of transporting aircraft from the front lines of the Second World War has died aged 103. So Nottingham-born Eleanor Wadsworth, who served as one of the RAF Spitfire women during the conflict, died in December in Bury St Edmunds, Suffolk, after a short illness. She was one of about 165 women who flew without instruments, flying instructions or radios. Operating out of the White Waltham in Berkshire, the Air Transport Auxiliary, the ATA programme, trained female pilots to fly numerous types of aircraft and played a crucial part in ensuring the RAF was able to fight. Like many of the pilots, Wadsworth joined the ATA in 1943 after seeing an advertisement for female pilots. The thought of learning to fly for free was a great incentive. I put my name down and didn't think much about it, she said back in 2020. Like many of the pilots, her favourite machine was the Spitfire, which she flew more than 130 times and described as a beautiful aircraft that was great to handle. The author, Karen Borden, who interviewed Wadsworth for an upcoming book, told the BBC that, like many of the women pilots, she was incredibly humble about her contribution to the war effort. She joked about how flying straight and level was her mark and how marvellous it was to take to the air on her own. Borden said the exploits of the female pilot have been given more attention recently after Giles Whittle's 2008 book Spitfire Women of World War II put them in the spotlight. Diana Walker, who died in 2008, aged 90, delivered 260 unarmed Spitfires from factories to RAF airfields between 1942 and 45. Joy Losthouse joined the ATA with her sisters in 1943 and flew aircraft including the Barracuda bombers, Mustang fighters and Spitfires from factories to the front line. Mary Ellis, who died in 2018, flew 76 types of aircraft and managed 1,100 flying hours. Molly Rose flew 486 aircraft and survived a crash after experiencing total engine failure while flying a Swordfish in Shropshire. About 165 female and 1,153 male pilots flew planes from factories to the front lines during the war. It was an incredibly dangerous thing to do, with the pilots only map strapped with elastic to their car. 15 women also died in action. When the ATA was wound up in November 1945, more than 309,000 aircraft had been transported to the front lines, with pilots clocking up more than 400,000 hours of flying time. That, for me, is an absolutely incredible story. And I mean, I thought I knew my history, but actually that's not something that I'd really thought about, is how they were getting these aircraft to the front line. You just sort of, I guess the naivety on my part is you assumed that this was being done by the people who were taking them into battle.
Yeah, I think most people assume, Matt, that these were flown by, trained Royal Air Force pilots who picked them up from the production facility and then flew them off into
wherever,
into wherever. But yeah, these ladies played a very important part in the war effort.
So I mean, sad to hear that somebody passed away, but I think we should celebrate what an amazing life, and what a wonderful story. That book sounds like something I need to get my hands on, actually. I think that needs to be done.
I think it was John was saying episode 343. There was a lecture about the ATA that I think Richard Adams pointed us towards. So,
yes,
go back and listen to that.
Absolutely. Okay. So
next in the show, then, we're going to have a chat with our guest James this evening. He's been sitting there patiently waiting.
He has.
So thank you, James, for sticking with us. So as we said at the beginning of the show, then you'll know that I did treat myself. Well, I didn't treat myself. I got treated to a new piece of kit for Christmas. And for those of you who love simming, as I do, and Armando does as well when he eventually unboxes all his sim equipment. I'm sure we've got many people in the chat room and who listen to the show who do enjoy home simming as much as I do. So welcome onto the show, James.
That's okay.
And James, so obviously you've got your company here in the UK, Flight Sim PM. So tell us a bit about what you supply. What do you sort of sell to us simmers?
Well, basically, I started. I managed to get a hold of a handle set from Italy, and then I think, well, maybe I should ask if he wanted a UK seller, which I did, and he said yes, I would love a UK seller, and that's where Flight Sim PM UK started in 2013. So it's literally it's been going well. It could be better now when it could. It's since COVID, it's died basically, and I thought, well, maybe a lot of people being locked in would buy more stuff, but they haven't. It's it's a lot of people thinking, no, I can't afford that money. My job might be gone or something like that. So I can quite understand. But I designed the box and everything that the SATEC quadrants sit in, so it turns them to a 45-degree angle. And I designed all that myself, but there was a guy in Hong Kong decided to get one of my boxes and start copying my handles and my boxes. but he seems to have gone quiet a little bit now. So hopefully I will pick up once this comes out of lockdown and everything.
Yeah, I think, James, for most people who's home sim, I think the SATEC kind of, the quadrants and the throttle quadrants and the yoke and stuff is where most of us start. They're relatively affordable, but obviously you supply, because obviously the stock SATEC throttle quadrant comes with the kind of Cessna style or the Piper style kind of buttons on the end, or the knobs on the end.
Yeah, the red, stalks. Black and blue ones.
Yeah. But you supply something really good to go on the end to actually give it a bit more
realistic. Yeah. Basically, you take those knobs off, or they come with them not on there. But I supply all the instructions on how to actually put these handles on. There's a small little grub screw in them as well to tighten them onto the lever. And it makes it more realistic because the box turns at 45 degrees. I've then got a template you actually put on for the flap and speed brake settings. And then you put the handles on top of that, and it makes it look very realistic. But the only thing is the reversers are dummy ones because you can't plug anything into the SATEC. Not like the one you got where everything works on it.
Yeah.
But the other new one that's come out is the honeycomb, as you know. But everything on that works. It's brilliant. But I'm looking at actually designing a pedestal for it.
So James, just out of curiosity, I mean, how did this start for you? Is it something that you were a big fan of? Did you do a lot of simming yourself, and you saw something that wasn't out there? I mean, how did the story start for you?
Yeah, basically I did a lot of simming at home. I started with FS 2004, I think it was, and then I just got upgraded to FSX, and then I started thinking, well, hang on a minute, I got one of these SATEC things, and then I started thinking, hang on, it's strapped to the desk, you can't breaking your wrist to try and move from minimum to full throttle. It's really awkward. So I then decided to do this box. It turns the throttles 45 degrees, like in the real one. So you could actually use the switches at the bottom as well. So then that's when I got into this business and really started progressing and getting ideas what else I could design and make. And in the end, I've designed quite a bit for this stuff now.
Wow, okay. Now, I know you were saying, obviously, earlier in the show, which we won't go into too much detail for, but obviously there has been a change here in the UK that has made getting parts from Italy perhaps a little more challenging than it was. As I say, we don't want to sort of go into too much detail there, but, I mean, it's... so a lot of these parts are actually made in Italy and then shipped over here, and then you assemble into controllers. Is that how it works?
No, all the handles are actually designed by me, made here by myself.
Oh, wow.
The only ones that are built in Italy are the ones like Carlos got, which is everything works on it.
Right.
He does Airbus, he does 737, he does 787. He does a good chunk of stuff. EFIS panels for the 73. He does quite a bit of stuff. And the 777 he does as well, the full throttle for the 777.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, is your market predominantly what I call the home simmer, or are there sort of other sort of commercial outlets that are interested in what you do?
I did actually sell 2 787 full working throttle units to the British Airways first team for their simulation.
Oh, wow.
They drive their mobile sim. They paid nearly £800 each for those. There's 2 of those, and they've got bought one and bought the second one as a backup in case when they're out in an air show, one fails, they can just swap it straight over. But that's going to be up at the, hopefully, Cosford Flight Sim show in October this year.
Wow, okay. Well, I mean, Lee Davis is actually saying in the chat room that the flight sims have come a long way since back in the day when he used to play them on his Amiga, which I think is fair to say. Nev, have you got any questions?
I was just looking in the chat room actually as well. Just a quick question for James. James, do you actually only do civilian flight sim equipment, or do you do military as well?
No, it's just commercial at the moment.
Yeah, excellent.
Good for you then, Nev.
As Carlos was saying, he rightly points out that most of these military aircraft are based on commercial platforms. So you could just paint it a different color and call it a military.
Yeah, make it grey, then nobody will notice. Yeah.
Actually, I'll say James was saying about the 45-degree boxes he does. There are a lot of people in the UK and probably the US as well who do use the SATEC throttle quadrant units. The 45-degree angle boxes that James does sell through his website are good at making those SATEC controls at the right angle to be more realistic, to actually sort of represent the real thing. And obviously with the handles as well that James has also got on his website, the actual handles that you can push onto the quadrant, they do add a hell of a lot to the realism of home simming.
Yeah.
I know we'll obviously have the links to James's website in the show notes, but I think for anyone who's stuck at home over lockdown, it's it's a good thing to.
I was going to ask you, Carlos. You know those toga switches
yes.
for the 7.3. Are they fully motorised, so they automatically set the thrust on their own, or do you still have to set them?
Yeah, so well they obviously work. The toga buttons work on the unit that I've got. Matt's probably got a picture there. He can put up on the screen of the unit.
I see. Oh, yeah, sorry.
But
I remember now.
The toga switches do work. If you push them, the throttles will obviously the throttles and the sim will advance.
Is this the thing you're talking about? Is it, or is that something else?
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. They will advance to take full takeoff power once you push that button in, and obviously to disengage, you just press the auto throttle disengage on the side of the throttle tops there.
Brilliant.
But, it's an amazing bit of kit, James. The one that I've got. Honestly, it does change the whole kind of way you look at home simming, I should say. But it's I think if you've got a few quid laying around spare.
Well, especially in lockdown. I mean, this is the perfect opportunity to pretend there's no pandemic on and literally sort of start flying the world, isn't it? I mean, this is one of those things. I'm going to ask a question here, James. Now, I know that John, our producer, has been doing a lot of playing with the Microsoft flight simulator.
2020,
yeah. And Carlos, now you're more of an X-plane, aren't you? You seem to prefer that over the Microsoft one for whatever reason. I've got to ask the question, which one out of the two of those is your go-to for flight simming?
X-plane at the moment.
I mean, is there any particular reason for that, or...?
There's a lot of problems with the new one at the moment. They're still doing updates. There's still a lot of problems with it, and I'm not going to wait. I'm going to wait until they've sorted all the little bugs out. But there's no 737 in the new one either, and they've only got a 747-8 and a Dreamliner and an A320. They're very limited on aircraft. There's no helicopters. But I think there's one external person now designing military aircraft for it. But when that's going to come out, we don't know. But I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait about a year before it sorts it all self out.
Wow. I mean, I suppose there seems to be a bit of a running theme with Microsoft and various updates being required, but we'll perhaps gloss over that and move on.
Actually, have you got any new? Is there any new bits and pieces you're working on, James? Is there any kind of different? Because obviously you got the 787 parts on the website. You've got the 737 next gen stuff on there. Are you going to be branching into kind of Airbus?
He's actually got the Airbus throttle done. He's actually now just designing the flap lever and the speed brake lever for it. But yeah, I will be doing, once I've sorted out the customs, I will be putting the Airbus on there as well.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to make sure, obviously, that all the links to your website are there. I mean, it's yeah, I could just wish you all the very, very best of success with it, because it's such a fun project, and I mean, Carlos, you're certainly loving what you've got.
Yeah, I say it's It's just a shame with all this Brexit thing of obviously the import and export side of things is now becoming incredibly hard for us in the UK, especially to be able to import, get things.
I mean, I would say that that's just temporary for the moment. I think, just while they sort out all the sort of like bits, people will still want to sell stuff to the UK, so I'm sure that'll all be sorted out in due course. But
the only thing is, Matt, I wanted to get across is I'm trying to design this pedestal for this honeycomb. So actually, instead of being strapped to your desk, it's down by the side of you like the real one.
Oh wow! Okay.
But they've sold 5,000 units so far.
Oh wow! Oh, that sounds good.
James, this will make you laugh. When Carlos was coming over to my house in Bury St Edmunds, I had taken the Cytec throttle quadrants and then used modeling clay. You know, modeling clay that you can mold and then put in the oven to bake. Yeah. That's how I was basically doing what you're trying to do in a much more professional manner. Yeah. But I had made handles out of modeling clay to simulate. I think at the time it was a Pilatus or something like that.
Yeah, if you go to my website, you'll have a look at see all the ones I do, all the different ones.
Oh, 757
and 767s and all that.
Yeah, I'm on it. I'm on the website right now. It'll be the difference between this and the British Airways luggage we talked about.
Oh no!
Can you ship to the US, James? Is that all right?
I ship everywhere, all worldwide.
Yes.
I've sold to New Zealand, Australia, the US, even Hawaii and everything.
I mean, again, a similar problem here. Armando needs to get permission from Megan in order to sort of, find somewhere to put the simulator, let alone sort of add kit to it, I suppose. Oh dear, never mind.
So, moving on then, thanks, James, for that.
Yep.
Actually, James, just... Oh, we have got a question from Richard Adams, yeah.
Yes, it was just saying, so Richard Adams is saying, I wonder if it would be feasible to get a real quadrant from the reclaimers, etc., and get it working for a sim.
Wow.
I know it can be done, but maybe not as sensible at an economic rate. Have you done anything like that before, where you've actually got the genuine article and converted it?
No, it's way too expensive. You're looking at about probably near £4,000 for one of those.
Wow.
Plus, you've got to do all the linkages are all differently. You've got to then put all new potometers in it and USB cards in it, and it's just nightmarish.
No, okay, not worth the effort probably then.
It would look really good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great bit of kit. Well, you're getting a lot of fun out of it, aren't you, Carlos?
Yeah. You've got honestly, if
yeah,
James.
Yeah.
Favorite aircraft. So, given the chance to fly any aircraft, be it commercial or military, any aircraft, you could just jump outside now, hop in, off. Whether it be retired, still flying, in a
747.
Yeah.
400. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Love those aircraft.
What have I got behind me? What's this picture I've got behind me?
The SP.
Oh, right.
That's a special version.
Of course.
Shorter version.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I spoilt it immediately. Nick Codling is sort of asking the question: how much would a beginner need to get themselves started?
How much will they spend? Yeah.
Oh, how much do they need to spend?
That would be if you could get hold of the Satec stuff. You're looking probably about £160 for the yoke and your throttle, and then a second throttle as well to give you like the 6 levers. But then on top, if you want to buy the 747 complete kit, it's about 110 quid for the whole lot.
I mean,
that gives you all the levers, the box, and the template and everything.
I mean, if simmings was something you really want to get into, actually that doesn't sound that bad, does it, really?
I think we'll all agree, and John will agree as well, and Matt, about this, the most expensive part about home simming is buying the actual PC.
Well, yes, to go with
run
it, actually, to be fair, yeah,
at full whack.
I mean, not everybody goes to the alarming lengths you have done with your three wrap round monitors, obviously. I mean, that's a little bit on the unusual side, let's be honest. I'm just trying to find a picture.
I hated having the bezel in front of me here with 2 monitors like
right,
this.
Right, okay.
Got that bezel. Yeah. So the third monitor...
What, so you thought you'd have three bezels instead. Is that essentially
well, no, because the central monitor is like your view at the front of the flight deck, and then obviously the two monitors.
Actually, I will give you credit where credit's due there. You've got that nicely lined up. It does sort of, look pretty good, actually. I will give you that.
And the great thing with X-Plane as well, you can, if the bezels are not slightly adjusted correctly, you can adjust in X-Plane the actual pitch of the bezels on actual screen display without adjusting the monitors themselves, which is quite good.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, sponsored by X-Plane. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, it is sponsored by X-Plane because I'm also an X-Plane fan and X-Plane user, and that was as a I'm going to call it a career Microsoft Flight Simulator guy. But we do have a couple more questions in the chat room. James, is this all running through one USB cord?
Yeah, one USB card. Yeah, basically you plug all the throttles into your USB. You can plug your yoke into your USB, your pedals in, and it all just disconnects it into Windows game controllers, and then you just set it all up in whatever sim you're using.
Okay. Yeah, I know I had that problem because I had a combination of multiple USB hubs, and then I even had one yoke that still had a serial connection.
Wow.
Yeah, the SATEC has actually got the serial connection on the side, but I don't use it. It's very low power. It's a lot more responsible if you plug both of them into the USB.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, wow. Actually, GB Model Zone is actually saying in the chat room here that hopefully going to get their PC sorted this weekend so I could do a review of Stu's 1/32 Tiger Meat Tornado. There you go.
So that's actually a different conversation we were having in the chat
Is it?
room.
Right, okay, fair enough. Sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's it. Spot the non-av geek here. Sorry about that. Oh dear. I'm gonna have a lie down in a darkened room. It's been a good show for me. I've got to be honest.
Usually the chat room is talking about food, but today we're actually talking about
airplanes. That's quite scary. Wow. Okay.
I was very lucky actually. I managed to contact Honeycomb because I was going to do their handles for them, but I found them too complicated. But they've sent me a complete yoke and a complete throttle to review for them.
Oh, brilliant!
Which is good because they are not cheap to buy.
No,
trust me.
So you are yourself an avid simmer.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Definitely X-Plane at the moment.
Yeah. What do you like flying when you're doing it? Yeah.
I've been set up at the moment for EGSS, which is London Stansted to Italy, in where my colleague lives in Falcona.
Oh wow.
And also fly to the States as well, to Orlando and Los Angeles.
Wow, fantastic. That's really cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us, James. It's been an awful lot of fun.
That's all right.
And we're going to move on to the final part of the show for this week, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Captain Nick, chatting to George Lee. And this week, the conversation moves into the world of the old Phenom.
Very true. I think we all felt the same about it. What was the nickname we used to give that Hunter F6?
Yeah, they called it the GT6.
Yes, well, I always loved that.
The course went well, Nick, to come back to your comment. But there was a rather unfortunate part in that course, and it was completely self-imposed. Because I had been so successful at leaning, my competitive spirit rose up with horns on it, and I was going to sweep the floor, as it were, at Valley. And bottom line, I applied myself too hard. Absolutely, I drove myself too hard. And when you do that, there comes a point where the body says, well, that's it, enough is enough. And to cut a long story short, I had what was essentially a nervous breakdown. Totally unexpected, came from left field. Maren, bless her, of course, didn't know what on earth was happening. I was taken off flying, told to, go back to our little place, which was in remote Anglesey, and recover. And I forget how long it took, but I did. and back into it, picking up on the course. And I did.
Well, that's interesting. They just sent you home and said, recover. And nowadays, of course, things would be treated very differently, but perhaps not back then.
My memory is getting a little hazy, Nick. I have no doubt. I do recall seeing a doctor. I do remember that bit. And indeed, he might have given me some medication to help me. I really cannot remember. But the flying, initially, naturally coming back from such a setback was really, really tough, very tough. But I managed to win the aerobatics prize. I managed overall to get the Cup of Honor at the end of the course, which was very pleasing, but a very, very salutary lesson, a hard one to learn.
Absolutely, yes. And in these days of our concern about our mental state, a great lesson for you, because I've no doubt that sort of held you in good stead in the future.
Sure. Sure, absolutely.
So from RAF Valley, and you're basically learning to become a pure pilot, we're now moving on to weaponeering and how to use an aircraft as a weapon of war. And what happened next?
Well, yes, in the training sequence, that would have been the next thing that would have followed. But the problem was, at the time, there was a very significant backlog of pilots. And this led to considerable personnel management problems, because here we were, this bunch of pilots passed out from advanced flying training, feeling very sharp and ready for the next stage. And suddenly the brakes come on totally, and people got posted to all sorts of interesting little positions, which were frankly not of much help towards Chivener in tactical weapons, that's for sure. And I thought, what will I do? I know, gliding. I know, because that been on the back burner naturally through all of BFTS, and indeed all through Valley and Shrewsbury, Shawbury, all of that. I wasn't gliding, so I've got to get back into gliding. So I rang up the chief flying instructor at Bicester, who was a legendary character by the name of Andy Goff, a flight sergeant, became warrant officer. Very powerful man, strong man, and he said, leave it to me. So, I knew it was a done deal when Andy said, leave it to me.
I love it. I love that a flight sergeant managed to get you a special posting for your holding tour.
No problem to Andy. He had friends in very high places who listened to him. Brilliant. And he arranged it. And I went back to the RAF Gliding Centre where I started. And I was there for a year, running courses, doing a lot of tugging on the Chipmunk. During that year, I flew my first ever gliding competition, which I managed to win, which was one, and that was another hook that then sunk in. So it was a wonderful year in many ways, but a very tiring year, very tiring. I was wiped out by the end of it, that's for sure. From there, went to do some refresher flying on the Jet Provost, Manby, I believe that was at. And that was okay for what it was, but it really didn't prepare me. And it didn't prepare me for what was to come. You can almost use the word shock going from that flying training Jet Provost environment into the Hunter, where although they were prepared to give you a little slack in view of the holding period, it wasn't going to be much. And I know that more than one very good pilot was lost through the system because they just couldn't cope with what they were faced with, because the flying at Chivener was extremely challenging, straight into the really heavy stuff. Cine tracking, air-to-air tracking, formation flying, and of course the weaponeering itself. Again, I loved the Hunter, absolutely loved it. I had some good instructors, very hard, but good. And the weaponeering, I absolutely adored. I just loved it, loved weaponeering. The Hunter, of course, had the 30mm cannon, and we had practice bombs for dive bombing. We did retard bombing and, rockets. So the weaponeering I adored. And managed to get over that initial major obstacle, and then the performance started coming again. So got through all of that quite well. And from then on, it was a matter of being allocated as to where people were going to go. And I learned that I was going to be posted to 228 OCU at Coningsby for the Phantom. And
I'm curious, did you actually have a desire to go and fly a particular airplane, or did that come as a very pleasant surprise?
It came as a very pleasant surprise, Nick, but within me, I wanted to fly fighters. Yes, I wanted to fly fast jet, definitely. So to go on the Phantom, I was delighted. I really was, over the moon.
Excellent, excellent. So off up to Coningsby for the conversion to fly the Phantom. What was that like?
Hard. It's very hard. It was a big wake-up call from the Hunter, I must say, because as you know, Nick, having flown the Phantom so much, it was not an aircraft that just flew on rails. You had to be with it, on top of it, all the time. And it was physically, of course, a much larger aircraft than the Hunter. But it had, one had to get used to the two-man crew concept. But it was once I got the measure of it, I thought, what a magnificent machine, magnificent, it really was. And the handling, although a long way short of perfect, once you got its measure, yeah, it did a great job. And it was a rugged machine, of course, great machine in terms of survivability going to war. And that was very classically demonstrated in Vietnam, of course. And here we are, this aircraft, which the very first flight was in 1958. And I gather it's still in service in a small number of air forces, Greece, Turkey, Japan, for example. Remarkable. The weapon systems were very, very basic, very crude, really. So one relied very much on what we call seaman's eye.
So, George, the role of the Phantom then was quite a multi-role aircraft, recce, air-to-ground, as well as air defence. Did you practice all those arts?
If you want to improve your 737 knowledge, why not attend one of our live technical refresher courses? These 2-day webinars are not just a Zoom call, nor are they just an instructor stood in front of a whiteboard. Our professional production team in their London studio uses the latest technology to bring you a fully interactive and engaging experience. Ask your instructor questions live at any time. For more information and to sign up, visit 737lounge.com.
Great segment as always, and a big thanks to Captain Nick for putting that together. It's better.
I should just say, actually, I made a slight mistake when I went into that. And in my defence, it's because I was actually thinking about the nightmare that is Pip just before I went into that. It's not a Phenom at all. I meant the Phantom. I don't know. For some reason, Pip just popped into my head there, and the word Phenom fell out of my mouth. He was in the chat room earlier. He was in the chat room earlier, and it was nice to see him, to be honest. We hadn't seen him for a while, so we'll have to try and get him back on the show at some point. But, yeah, I meant Phantom. You all knew I meant Phantom, didn't you? Sorry about that. Yeah.
Just like the Bombardier.
Bombardier, yes.
Anyway, social media links. Don't forget, if you want to contact the show, you can do via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Search for Plane Talking UK. Don't forget as well our WhatsApp number, +44 757 22 49166. Email the show, podcast at planetalkinguk.com. And also don't forget to check out our website, allthews.planetalkinguk.com. And also, why not subscribe to our YouTube channel? You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room. Go to www.youtube.com and search for Plane Talking UK. And don't forget as well, if you check out our website, you can shop through our Amazon link. It doesn't cost you anything, but we do get a small referral fee if you buy some random items like I have this week. And also, you can look on our website and you can buy one of our lovely PTUK t-shirts, which I haven't got on, but you can buy yourself a PTUK t-shirt. We've sent one out to the US this week. Hopefully that will arrive with that person very soon. And also, don't forget as well, the links are on our website if you want to become a Patreon of the show or donate to the show using PayPal. The links are on there. We would love it if you could. That would be brilliant because it all helps to push the show out each week and also helps to pay for the usual fees for doing the show, like the server hosts and all their website stuff, which we have just paid for actually this month.
Indeed.
So,
James, how do people get in touch with you to find out more about your amazing products?
They've got a website which is basically the same as my name, flightsimpm-uk.co.uk. Cool.
There we go. Any social media or anything like that, or is it all on the website?
It's all on the website.
All on the website. Very good. That's, give that to us again.
It's flightsimpm-uk.co.uk.
There we go.
And Matt will put all the relevant links in the show notes as well for you to click on and go and see James's site. So make sure you do check that out, because if you are a home simmer, you'll love all the bits and bobs he's got on sale on the website. So quick run through. Matt, what are you doing next week?
I'm selling more wine. Next.
Excellent. Armando, what are you doing next week?
Actually, I'll be doing a lot of flying. I'll be flying those ROTC cadets from Elon University and North Carolina A&T, flying skydivers on Sunday, and I think Thursday I'm flying with Steph in the skydive plane to get her some currency in that short field.
Very
so
cool.
Lots of flying this week.
Good.
Very cool.
And Nev, what are you doing?
Yes, I'm working, of course, as always, but also we're involved with our global sales meeting next week, which means it's going to be some very late nights. So sadly, I won't be able to join you on next week's show.
Oh,
a tragedy, I remember.
That's the way that you break it to us, honestly.
And John, what are you doing next week? Oh, no, we can't hear John. Can we?
Yeah. Well, no, we can. It's just the audio. And, what about you, James? Any interesting projects? Any interesting projects that you've got up your sleeve for next week?
Not at the moment. I'm just trying to build what I can and get this pedestal kind of designed and get the first one made.
Wow. Good. It sounds like you got your hands full.
Good. So a big thanks to everyone who has joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening, and not forgetting as well, or everyone who downloads the show as an audio podcast. And don't forget, if you do download through iTunes or one of the other podcasty type download platforms, don't forget, if you get 5 minutes, do give us a review, because we do love that. So thanks to everyone in the chat room again. Thanks for joining us. And from me, Carlos, here in my home studio, from Matt in the PTUK Master Suite studios, from Nev in his glorious Buckinghamshire studios, from Armando in the Summer Suite studios in Charlotte, and from John in his studio somewhere in the world, and from James as well in his studio. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.